The War Council chamber on Trivarn 9 smelled of ozone, metal, and contempt. Commander Joran Hale stepped through the towering, arched entrance with the unhurried gait of someone used to being underestimated. The chamber was built to awe, 12 meters high, inlaid with obsidian tiles and glowing veins of alien minerals pulsing with low light. But its real gravity came from the dozen galactic warlords seated around the crescent dais at its far end. Each represented a world, a species, and a war machine. And none of them had any respect for the man now walking across the chamber floor. He wore no cape, no medals. His armor was scuffed matte black composite, functional and devoid of decoration. A short cloak, weather-worn and sleeveless, hung from his shoulders. He carried no ceremonial blade, only a small pouch at his hip that clicked faintly with each step, metal tapping metal. The sound swallowed by the silence that preceded laughter. General Zarketh, the scaled warlord of the Trell Empire, let out a dry, guttural chuckle. This is the human they sent? A strategist, they say. Grade 3. His voice echoed, barbed with amusement. Was there no one above him on your war totem, Earthman? Another warlord, this one a towering insectoid encased in iridescent armor, clicked his mandibles. Perhaps he earned his stripes farming dust back on Terra. The laughter spread. Low, dismissive, but practiced, ritualistic. Hale said nothing. He didn't bow. He didn't salute. He stopped 5 paces from the dais and scanned the room, meeting every pair of eyes in turn. His gaze wasn't confrontational. It was something quieter, more dangerous. Calculation, without apology. The high chair, a translucent crystalline form pulsing with sentience and authority, flickered with restrained energy. Commander Hale, it spoke in harmonic tones. You've been assigned to the Vaughn sector. Observation and logistical mapping only. No direct engagement authorized. Zarketh leaned forward, claws clicking against the dais. We would prefer you not spill unnecessary human blood in this campaign. Joran's jaw shifted, but he said nothing. He reached for the pouch at his side, undid the clasp, and slowly poured its contents into his gloved hand. The council chamber quieted. The objects in his palm caught the chamber light, dog tags. Dozens of them. Scratched, some scorched. All worn. He looked at them for a long moment before choosing one. This one, he said softly, holding it up between thumb and forefinger, belonged to Captain Reva Morn, killed at Vornak Ridge. 72 men under her command. Last transmission was laughter. Hers. She died buying 20 more seconds for evac. There was a pause. The room, uncomfortable now, bristled. Joran let the tag fall back into the pouch. Every one of these has a name, a history, a final decision. He let the pouch close with a sharp click. I don't carry medals. I carry warnings. Charming, Zarketh muttered. Tell us, human, do your fallen whisper strategy to you in your sleep? Joran's eyes didn't flicker. Sometimes. The crystalline high chair stirred again, attempting diplomacy where mockery had failed. You are dismissed, Commander. Your transport leaves in one cycle. A standard observational force of 40 soldiers is under your temporary command. You'll find your assignment details transmitted. Joran turned without a word, footsteps echoing in the silence, now grown uneasy. Behind him, one of the warlords, quiet until now, a feline-like being with 6 eyes, watched him closely, not with ridicule, but curiosity. As he passed through the exit arch, Joran took the tag of Captain Morn from the pouch again and turned it in his hand. He remembered her grin, the explosion behind her, the silence that followed. The hallway beyond the chamber was quiet and dimly lit, designed more for grandeur than utility. Joran walked alone. No guards, no aides. Earth's budget for such niceties had dried up a century ago. They sent him here not because they expected success, but because he was expendable. Yet that made him dangerous in a way the warlords hadn't accounted for. He wasn't here for a seat at the table. He was here for the war they didn't believe he could win. And that was the mistake. He paused at the viewport overlooking the starfield. In the distance, a blue-green gas giant shimmered behind the curve of the planet. Somewhere beyond it, the Vaughn sector waited, fractured, lawless, crawling with raider fleets and opportunistic insurgents. A place the Warlords considered unworthy of their elite. They'd given him rookies and the dying. Scraps. But Joran Hale had built victories from less. He had no interest in glory. Only the mission. Only the names. He closed the pouch and slid it against his hip. Behind him, laughter still echoed faintly from the chamber. He let it linger in his mind. Another sound to remember. Another voice to silence. The dropship shuddered violently as it tore through the Vaughn sector's upper atmosphere, turbulence clawing at its hull like a living thing. Commander Joran Hale stood braced near the rear hatch, one hand gripping the overhead rail, the other resting on the pouch of dog tags at his side. Around him, the squad assigned to him sat in sullen silence, their expressions ranging from wary to exhausted. Misfits mostly. Too young, too old, too broken. Hand-me-down armor, patched exosuits, chipped rifles. 40 soldiers cobbled together from the corners of forgotten postings. Earth's version of military generosity. A corporal with a buzzed head and a data visor flickering with static leaned toward him. "Sir, comms are saying the landing zone's contested. Pirate activity." Joran didn't turn his head. "Good." The corporal blinked. Good? If they're there," he said, voice even, "they're not expecting us." He moved forward as the red warning lights began to spin. The ramp hissed, then lowered, revealing a sky darkened by smoke trails and a horizon lit by fires from previous skirmishes. The base was half-constructed, a skeleton of prefabricated modules barely held together by magnetic clamps. Beyond it, the jungle of the Vaughn world pulsed green and violent, teeming with threats both mechanical and organic. They hit the dirt with discipline, if not grace. Joran didn't bark orders. He didn't need to. These were soldiers used to being left behind. He let them move, stumble, recover. That was the point. No simulations. No ceremony. Just war. Within hours, the base perimeter was secured. Sensors online. Defenses recalibrated. The pirates had scattered at the sight of the incoming vessel, not expecting resistance this deep into what they considered their territory. That was a gift, a brief pause in the chaos. Joran used it. He assembled the unit in the open courtyard just before dusk. The air was humid and thick with the hum of unseen predators. He stood in front of them with nothing more than a holomap and a crate. "I won't ask where you came from," he began. "You've been through more than enough debriefings. I don't care what you did to get reassigned here. All I care about is what you do next." Somewhere near the back, someone coughed. A veteran in rusted armor adjusted his shoulder strap. No one spoke. Joran flipped the crate open. Inside, instead of ammunition or gear, were dozens of dog tags. The ones he carried weren't just symbols. They were lessons. Every tag represented a tactical moment, a decision that saved or cost lives. He held one up. This belonged to Lieutenant Saren Vox. She triggered a cascade explosion in a munitions tunnel on Greth Prime. Killed herself. Took out 3 enemy walkers with her. Her last message was coordinates. He tossed the tag back into the crate. That's not glory. That's what war takes. He scanned the faces. Stillness. You'll each take a tag. Not as a trophy. As a burden. You carry it until you earn your own story. Or die trying. There was movement, then. Hesitation, followed by grim acceptance. One by one, they stepped forward and chose. Even the skeptical ones. Especially them. That night, under the shadow of orbital debris and the calls of alien predators, Joran planned. He studied raider patterns, movement frequencies, supply lines. He mapped the jungle using outdated cartography merged with thermal sweeps. He found dead zones, valleys where comms failed and sensors dropped out. Perfect ambush sites. The next day, he led a team of 10 into the wild. It wasn't a patrol. It was a demonstration. They moved with precision, ghosting through thick foliage, navigating by silent signals and muscle memory. He had them bury tripwires beneath fallen moss, lace branches with monofilament snares, mark trees with infrared-coded warnings. Hours passed. Then movement Pirates, 6 of them, sloppy, loud, confident. The trap was textbook. 2 charges funneled them into a kill box. The final charge took them off their feet. When it ended, 5 lay dead. The 6th, bleeding and screaming, was silenced by a knife. No casualties. No mercy. They left the bodies untouched, but placed one of Joran's dog tags beside them. Not a name, just a number. A warning. Back at base, the others noticed the change. The soldiers who'd gone out with Joran walked differently. Not with pride, something harder, sharper. Confidence edged in steel. Raider activity dipped. The next convoy that tried to run a borderline found themselves without comms in a fogged-out valley, and were never heard from again. The warlords didn't notice at first, or didn't care. Valn was a dustbin to them, a proving ground, nothing more. But whispers spread. Other units on fringe worlds started copying Hale's ambush tactics. Scraps of his strategy files leaked through the net. Soldiers called it dog tag doctrine. Joran ignored the chatter. He focused on the math. They were outnumbered 10 to 1, undersupplied, and barely reinforced. But they had time. They had terrain. And now they had fear on their side. In the following weeks, Hale's unit struck again and again. Lightning raids. Stolen supplies. Extracted intelligence. Always clean. Always efficient. He never gave orders he wouldn't take himself. Never slept more than 3 hours. Never removed the pouch from his belt. Late one evening, as the jungle burned faintly in the distance and night crept over the base, the same corporal from the dropship approached him. "Sir, permission to speak freely?" Joran nodded without looking up from the map. "Why do they keep underestimating us?" He folded the map, looked up. "Because they count by rank. We count by names." The soldier didn't quite understand, not yet. But he nodded and walked away. Joran remained seated, the tag of Captain Riva morn glinting faintly beside him in the firelight. The silence of the jungle was no longer threatening. It was listening. The encoded transmission came at 0300, buried beneath layers of obsolete encryption no one used anymore, except Joran. He decoded it in seconds. The message was short, clinical. Warlord Rilek en route. Inspection in 72 hours. Assessment team attached. It didn't say why. It didn't need to. The warlords had noticed. Too many successful ops. Too few losses. Someone wanted to confirm whether Joran Hale's reputation had become inconveniently real. He stood alone in the command module as the message faded from the hollow display. His reflection in the glass caught the soft blue glow of the screen. Tired eyes, unshaven jaw, skin grayed by months of jungle exposure. Not a leader by design, just a survivor. Outside, rain slashed against the prefab walls. Storm season, predictable and unforgiving. The jungle loved the chaos. Roots swelled, creatures stirred, and visibility dropped to nothing. It would make a fine welcome mat for Rilek. He found Corporal Nearus in the North Barracks, recalibrating a pulse rifle. "I need you to prep a misdirection drill," Joran said. 48 hours. Make it look like a real deployment. Full op theater. Noise, chatter, fake casualties. She didn't pause. "Rilek's coming?" Joran nodded. "I'll spread the word." He watched her go, no questions asked. That was trust, not blind loyalty, but earned reliance. Rilek would be expecting pomp, ceremonial guards, strategic reports. Instead, he'd get a ghost. The next 2 days passed in razor-edge calm. Patrols rotated silently. Defense grids received shadow upgrades. And throughout the base, a strange tension built. Less fear, more anticipation. The squad wasn't afraid of a warlord's inspection. They were afraid he might interfere. Rilek arrived in a gunmetal skiff flanked by 2 crimson fighters. His armor shimmered like oil under the sector sun, multi-plated, ceremonial, heavy with status. His face was lined, not by age, but calculation. He walked like a man who expected gravity to yield. 6 aides flanked him, data analysts, combat auditors, and one silent woman whose eyes were cybernetic and unreadable. Joran waited alone on the pad. No honor guard. Rilek asked, descending the ramp with a slow, deliberate pace. No parade either, Joran replied. You wanted an inspection, not a celebration. The warlord studied him. You don't act like a subordinate. I don't act like a failure. They didn't shake hands. Rilek moved through the base with practiced detachment, cataloging details with a tactician's eye. He paused at the ammo depot, noting the reinforced barricades, lingered at the medical module, seeing field surgeries logged without bureaucratic delay, examined the live feeds from the outer sensors, where motion-triggered drones hovered in perpetual readiness. These defenses are non-standard, one aide muttered. They work, Joran said simply. They reached the courtyard. Most of the soldiers were absent, off-site on the fabricated mission. Only a skeleton crew remained, intentionally worn, visibly exhausted, weapons slung loosely across shoulders. Rilek turned to face him fully. You've built a cult. I've built something the enemy fears. The woman with the cybernetic eyes finally spoke. Her voice was toneless, manufactured. We've reviewed your casualty rates. Statistically anomalous. Losses below 7% in a red zone sector. Either your reports are falsified, or your tactics are irregular. Joran didn't flinch. We fight to win, not to impress. Rilek waved his aides away. When he spoke next, it was lower, closer to something like interest. They say you carry dog tags. The dead like trophies. Not trophies. Warnings. Rilek's expression shifted just slightly, an eyebrow raised, amusement tinged with disbelief. You threaten with names? I remind them what mistakes cost. They stood in silence. Rain began again, soft at first, then furious. It drummed against the metal rooftops, ran in rivulets through the cracks in the courtyard tiles. Rilek turned and looked out at the perimeter, where lightning framed the jungle in white. You're a relic, Hale, he said finally. This war will outgrow you. Joran reached into his pouch and pulled out a single tag. He handed it to the warlord without ceremony. Rilek glanced at it, worn, bent, letters half scoured away. Private Darren Teal, Joran said, took a plasma round to the chest while dragging a teammate out of an artillery nest. His last word was run. He was 18. Didn't die for Earth. Died for the man next to him. Rilek held the tag like it might burn him. You can write him off as a number. I don't. Rilek said nothing, but he pocketed the tag. That night, the skiff left. No formal farewell. No report read aloud. But the message came through encrypted channels by morning. Valn's sector command to remain autonomous. No further inspections authorized. Joran didn't smile when he read it. He simply nodded once and moved to the armory, where repairs were underway on a damaged scout drone. Outside, the jungle groaned and shifted. Storms brewed over the western ridges, where 3 raider fleets were rumored to be amassing. The warlords had tried to measure him by rank, by protocol. But now they knew. Joran Hale didn't trade in stars or titles. He traded in names. The first wave came at dawn, silent, surgical, and in greater numbers than anyone had anticipated. No grand prelude. No broadcast demands. Just dozens of cloaked insertion pods breaching the atmosphere in tight formation, dropping like steel rain into the jungle's dense canopy. The raiders had adapted. No longer scavengers or slavers, they moved like a unified force. Someone had given them purpose, funding, strategy. The outpost's early warning grid flared red across the command map. Joran Hale stood in the situation room, watching the incursion unfold in real time. His jaw was clenched, his pulse steady. The skirmishes of previous months had been preludes, testing measures. This was the real assault. They're ignoring the outer sensors, said Corporal Nearus, crouched by the interface. They know where our blind spots are. They studied us, Joran replied, already calculating. Then they missed something. The trap wasn't in the sensors or walls. It was in the people. He moved swiftly through the base, barking short commands. No panic, no hesitation. Each fire team activated contingency maneuvers, dispersing into pre-assigned fallback positions. The outpost was designed like a broken machine, jagged, uneven, hostile. Most saw that as a flaw. Joran had made it a weapon. By midday, the jungle around the compound was alive with crossfire. Ambushes fired from sunken trenches. Overhead drones, invisible in the storm-filtered light, dropped countermeasures and drew sniper fire away from the medevac routes. The raiders advanced in heavy armor, expecting straight combat. They found nothing straight about this fight. Joran was at the front. He fired from cover, moved like a phantom through mud and smoke, his voice cutting clean through squad comms. Hold formation Delta. Pull fire left. Let them think the line's breaking. And when they pressed harder, when they believed the breach was real, he triggered the silent explosives rigged beneath the old refueling tanks. The explosion wasn't enormous, but it was surgical. Shrapnel tore through exosuits. 2 squads collapsed. Screams echoed into the trees. Behind him, Sergeant Kess dragged a wounded soldier into cover, cursing through bloody teeth. They're trying to box us in, 2 wings pushing hard from the south slope. Joran nodded, wiping ash from his face. Let them close. He drew a new tag from his pouch. This one was pristine. No name yet. Just a reminder. From the northern ridge, a secondary detachment emerged, raider specialists, moving faster than the frontline troops. He watched them on the drone feed, efficient, angular, marked by discipline. These weren't ordinary raiders. Mercenaries, maybe. Ex-military. He recognized the spacing of their formations. Whoever had unified the pirates had drilled them well, but not perfectly. Joran keyed into the encrypted frequency and spoke 3 words. Protocol Blackthorn. The base responded like a living thing. From the outer bunkers, metal shutters rose. Automated turrets sprang to life, spitting plasma across the advancing lines. The central tower vented gas, ionized haze that blinded thermal visors. Shock teams burst from concealed trenches, unleashing short-range volleys with brutal efficiency. Even then it was close. Joran found himself pinned behind a shattered cargo skiff, rifle jammed, bleeding from a graze across the cheek. One raider surged through the smoke, tall, armored in black composite plating. He lunged. Joran rolled, drew his sidearm, and fired once, point-blank into the raider's exposed neck joint. The man dropped with a sound like a puppet string snapping. There was no time to rest. A call came through comms, urgent, panicked. Northwatch is down. They breached the command module. He sprinted. The upper deck of the command module was smoke-filled, strewn with bodies, his and theirs. At its center stood a figure, uncloaked, unarmored save for a black mantle over civilian clothes. His hands were gloved, not because of the weather, but to hide military-grade augments. His eyes glowed faintly silver. "I heard you were difficult to kill," the man said, calmly aiming a slender sidearm toward the room's only surviving tech. "Not for lack of volunteers," Joran replied, stepping into view. The man tilted his head. "Commander Hale. The relic. The ghost of dog tags. Who are you?" "Someone sent to retire old myths." Joran didn't reply. He raised his weapon. But the man was faster. Augmented reflexes, neural targeting, full spine overlays. He fired. Joran dove behind a console, the shot glancing off the edge. Sparks exploded. Alarms wailed. "You trained them well," the man said, moving slowly now, circling. "But you can't win. Not this time." "I don't need to," Joran said, breathing hard. "Just long enough." The man stopped. "Long enough for what?" Joran grinned, blood in his teeth. "For them to count." The command module's lower floor exploded upward, charges pre-planted in the event of breach. It hurled both men through the air. Joran slammed into a support beam, ribs cracking. He rolled, dazed. When the dust settled, the intruder was dead, crushed beneath collapsed equipment, his weapon gone. No final words. Joran crawled to his feet. Outside, the tide had turned. Reinforcements, unexpected, late, but real. A convoy from the Fifth Fleet, responding to a ghost ping Joran had embedded in the last report Relec never read. By nightfall, the raiders were broken, routed, captured, or burned. The base was wrecked, but intact. Joran stood in the courtyard where it had all started, the crate of tags beside him. He reached in and placed the new one gently among the others. The name would be etched later, but the story had already begun. Around him, soldiers gathered. Bloodied, bruised, but standing. Survivors. You held, he told them simply. And they counted. A long silence. Then, one by one, they placed their own tags back into the crate. Not as surrender, as memory. Joran looked out into the jungle. Smoke still curled from the trees. Far above, the stars burned, cold and impassive. He didn't need medals. He didn't need titles. He had names.